Oh, because you got the camera going. Good morning. This is a very special day in this country. It's today at 11 o'clock. It's the 11th day of the 11th month at 11. It's called Remembrance Day. So, who are we remembering? The people that established or fought for this country. All of them, in every aspect of their lives. Now, we were given a new purported law, and we were told what the standards are. Well, the standards of any platform should be truth. I get that. It should be the truth of everything that we believe in. What we believe in was, and Anthony Albanese has actually stated this, that this exists. The Constitution, Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK, an act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia. The reason it's called an act to constitute, it's an enabling act. It enables us to have a constitution subject to the act. The act's still in force. You go online, you can go into England, you can find the act is still in force. No one's removed it, so it's there. We were asked to remove it in 1999, we didn't. So now Anthony Albanese has come up with an act that purports to control everything we say on the social media. That's fine. If a platform is for truth, means that everything we say must be truth. Where does the truth come from? The superior law of this country, our Constitution. Now, this is 51 subsection 1. This is instructions to the federal Parliament. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws for the peace, order and good government of the Commonwealth with respect to, and it lists all the things, trade and everything else. And if you get down here, 51 subsection 9, it talks about quarantine. 7 talks about lighthouses, light ships, beacons and buoys. We know about all of this, and I've said before, there was no quarantining of state borders and everything. You can't do it because it wasn't the power of the states to do it. It was removed from section 69 and put into here, 51, which are the powers of the federal parliament exclusively in this section. Now we've got a problem, and it starts to create a big problem, because on the heading on the side of this it says legislative powers of the parliament. It's to legislate. Now, my understanding is legislate is to debate and pass laws put together by an executive, because this is the act. I'm not talking about the Red Constitution, which is the framers' version of what it should say. And the framers put this together. It went to England, and this was put in place. Nowhere in any order or law or rule or regulation that come out of England was there ever given the right for the Parliament, elected by the people to serve the people, to dismiss this act. We were asked to dismiss it, to give the Parliament the power to create itself as a republic. We were asked to do it. And guess what? We didn't give it. We said no. And now we find that this Parliament has got, you open their documents, you open their papers in their courts I'm stating, for a reason. It says, welcome to country. Hang on, we're already here. Who's it welcoming to country? Where are these smoke things coming from? Where is all that? So let's not get on any of that, because none of it exists in here. There's nothing in here. These laws for good governance and well-being have to be in here. They're not in here. They're not being used. I understand what's in here. I comprehend it. What's in this act. I'm not denying them the Parliament, any legislative authority, because it comes out of here. Now, where does it come from? It's laid that out from the Governor General in Council. One thing what confuses this, and I'm putting this together out of my head, because after listening to what Albanese says, he's now wants to have an election shortly, and that's the media's saying that he wants to have an election. The only power of election to have an election is in here. So what he has to do, if he wants the people to follow his law, he calls it, and he's saying it's a law made by his government, the Australian government, and he says the Prime Minister has these powers, his powers. I'm not going to deny what he's saying, because he's saying it. He's saying if we say the wrong thing, we're going to jail or be fined, and Facebook can be fined. Well, hang on. So I am speaking as loud as I can, because this system keeps dropping the voice off, because it's called control. What is annoying me right now, and I am a bit annoyed because I've laid awake for the last 4 hours thinking of how to answer Anthony Albanese in relation to what he's saying. So I'll do it this way. This is our constitution. It's accepted by Anthony Albanese, so he could put the voice, he could do this, he could do that. He's accepted. Now he's going to have the Governor General prorogue the Parliament, which is dissolve it, and he's going to have an election, while at the same time he's choking our ability to talk. Now, he says it's a lawful law. He says if you say the wrong thing, you can go to jail. I'm only saying what I get from your purported law, Anthony Albanese. That's all I'm saying. I've said many things. I've also lawfully seized under this the 3 tiers of the federal parliament, lawful ones. So now I'll tell you my observations on your law. I'm not saying we don't have to abide by it. I'm not saying it's lawful or unlawful. What I'm saying is I can't find in here where it authorises political parties. I can't find in here where the Parliament is sovereign and supreme and has the ability to do what it likes and change anything. I can't even find in here, which is a letters patent, by the way, only alterable or changed by the reigning monarch. I can't find that in here. And this is the act which grants us the right to have a constitution and govern this country by the people. The House of Representatives means you represent us. When? When are you representing us if you don't comply with this? This does not say we have a Prime Minister. This does not say we have premiers. Nor do the letters patent for the states, being the state constitutions. In fact, this only lays out how you establish the first federal parliament. Simple. You have 6 states, and when those you actually derived from 6 colonies. So, if you've got 6 colonies that become 6 states, they do so under the authority of this. And everything that passes is subject to this authority. What I can't figure, and I would like your help on this, Anthony Albanese, because you appear to have the superior knowledge of this country. I've seen where you derive it, so I'm actually being a little bit sarcastic when I say I can't find anywhere in here where it says there's a Prime Minister. I can't find anywhere in here where it says there's a Premier. I can't find cabinets. I can't find all the rest of the stuff you've got. All these special cabinets, all these superpowers where you're above us, where you're above the law. This is the superior law. I can't find any of that. Why not? That's all I'm asking you. You want us to abide by that law. I'm not saying we're not going to. What I'm saying is we need you to authorise that law to show us where you got the authority from. Who gave it to you? Who told you you could join the United Nations, the League of Nations, sign the Treaty of Versailles, put all these things into our Constitution, whereas because we never had the 6 states, how do you exist? It doesn't say you can forget about it. It says states from colonies. We had 6 colonies, so we had to have 6 states. That sounds pretty logical, doesn't it, to you? Is that really what you're saying? Or have you got a different version? If you have, where does it come from? Because everything in this country was wiped out, except imperial law, by way of Clause 7 of the Constitution. I understand that you've got people who've taken that out, policy-trained professors who've taken all that out. I get all that, according to you. But there's no authority for them to do it. You see, the framers of the Constitution put this together. The supreme, absolute and uncontrollable authority, according to the framers, remains with us. So we've accepted this as the lawful act. We've accepted that this establishes the Commonwealth of Australia as self-governing colony of England. We're the Commonwealth. It's the Commonwealth of the people. It is we, the people. We set this up. You did not. Political parties did not. Premiers, prime ministers, and all that never set it up. It was the will of the people. What you're trying to now say, that following our will, we've given you the right somehow to change that and control us, you know, and a lot of other things. You're slipping in controls and misleading and deceiving us. You know, when the people say no at a referendum, you obviously, hang on, I'm just getting something because I want to show you. You obviously put the referendum there to get the opinion of the people, or somebody does, based on the fact that 128 says so. Now, we were asked quite a few years ago if we would approve the Australia card. So we have an ID card. The problem we have, well, I have with all the things that are going on, and I would like an explanation because I'm one of the 27 million, make this up. This is my driver's license. On the back of it, we got a barcode. What do we want a barcode for when all my details are on the front of it? And then you look at the barcode, and I've got to point out that there's a number there. I was told that's your digital ID. I was told that. And because I checked things out, I took this to licensing, and I said to one, I went out, got my card, sat there for half an hour wasting my time, because it was a waste of time. And I said to the young lady, is that, I was told this is the digital ID and this is the number. She said, yes, that's right. I said, who told the government, our government, they could give us a digital ID. They never asked us. We already said you can't have the Australia card, so now we've got a digital ID. Who gave them that authority? She said, I don't know. I said, well, that was a very honest answer, so thank you very much, and I left. But now I want to know who gave any representatives of people the right to give us a digital ID. Who gave you that right? We said no to a card that you wanted us to have, and we said no. Oh, you want to know who we are? Why? The only time you really need to know who we are is when you're running for Parliament. According to this, you should be coming around and visiting us. Visit us in our place of work, where we are on the street and everything else. That's according to our Constitution. So the Governor can put together a large group of people for us to select from to establish our Parliament, the governing body over us, to pass laws for the good governance and well-being of us. I still cannot, after I memorise a large portion of this, almost all of it, not all of it, and I use the annotated Constitution, which is what the framers wanted us to understand, not what politicians, self-serving, and I say that because it's the truth, what they want us to understand. It's not up to you. It's up to you to follow our instructions, which is the supreme law. The Ann Toomeys and David, the red-headed wonder from Western Australia, and all the other professors, if they're teaching law and they're professors of law, must put this in a supreme position. Martin Taylor, you can't have a royal commission into the Constitution. It should be taught in the school. I understand what you're saying. I've looked at doing that years ago with other people. And into those that choose to abuse it by ignoring it might be a starting point. No, if they ignore it and abuse it, that's treason. We don't have to interpret that part. We just have to deal with them according to law. And I'm not saying anyone in particular at this time is doing that, because apparently that isn't in the standard of the community. Well, the standard of our community, I might inform you, Anthony, in your nice little name. Anyway, I don't care what your name is, because until you prove authenticity, really, nothing you do is valid. There is no Australian government in our Constitution. There's a federal parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia. That's what we have. You adhere to that when it's convenient, but you adhere to it all the time. Otherwise, there would be no need for this discussion. You would have done what you wanted to do years ago, but you've been doing it by stealth, hoping that nobody would realise and you could do it. The King could not sign off on your logo, including the United Nations, because we're not part of it. We're established under this, not under any United Nations charter. That's truth. You need us to agree to join the United Nations. Truth. Because the money you paid belonged to us. So is our money. All we wanted to do is be asked, so we're given the chance to tell you, in no uncertain terms, no. No. We said no to a republic. But you didn't bother to listen. You thought, oh, well, we'll give it to them anyway. And that's exactly what you've done. You've decided you had the right to change all these things. You're wrong. Only authority granted is what's granted to you by the Constitution. It grants authority to the states. Those two are separate, the Commonwealth and the states. Then it grants joint legislative authority. It's all in interpretation by our framers. Nobody, no one, there was no referendum to authorise the Australia Act or any of that, because you don't exist. You haven't ever existed. But just the scenario that you may have had some authority, but according to the Constitution, you haven't. You never complied with 106, 107, 108 and 109 of the Constitution to establish the states. The Commonwealth Parliament comes from representatives of those states. If they don't exist, the Commonwealth can't. So it never has. It's irrelevant to think, oh, we've accepted. No, we've accepted nothing because we were not told. You see, when the supreme, absolute and uncontrollable authority remains with the people, and Toomey says we don't need a referendum for the Australia Act. Sorry, Anne, that's a lie. Don't know who told you it, it's a lie. Otherwise, show us in this Constitution where that idea comes from. It doesn't. Supremacy of the Parliament, ours, annotated one from the framer says we're supreme. Says the Parliament's not supreme, it's not sovereign. It only has limited authority to pass laws, the Parliament, for the good government and well-being of us, and that's laid out even in the state constitutions, which none of them are in existence anymore. You took them out. So if you've got no state constitutions, you've got no states. No states, you've got no federal parliament. All you've got sitting in the parliament, and you have got traitors, frauds, liars, and everything else, unless you can prove what you're saying is true. And you can't do that because nothing, from what I can see, based on this, you don't comply with any of it. Again, I'm not saying you can't have that law. We'll abide by it if it's made according to this. So I'm asking you to show us in here that doesn't question your law. It show us in here where you got the authority for the Australian government, to Prime Minister and the Cabinet to put your legislation together which overrides this. Where'd you get it from? Simply you didn't have it. You didn't. I can tell you that because I've read this. We're not a republic. We're a self-governing colony of England. Why? Because our Constitution says so. You can't change that. You can't change that. Clause 8 says that. Clause 8's applicable. And Toomey says only Clause 9 is. Again, and Toomey, it's just more lies. You've been taught lies, you're repeating lies, and the political parties have you there as a stooge, and they'll say, oh, but she taught that. No, she taught what you told them to teach. So, at present, your so-called new law sits there. It hasn't been ascended to by lawful Governor-General. Hasn't been. Because according to all the stuff we have, it does not authorise a Governor-General the way you have. You see, what you've concealed is that Federation, there was a letters patent for the office of Governor-General. It's a reciprocating one. It can't be taken out. It applies to every single Governor-General. Gives you the right to have one. And then it lays down the powers of that Governor-General. But is that in here? The powers of the Governor-General are in here in 61 to 68 of this Constitution. So those powers are defined of the Governor-General. And you've been using them. The Governor-General's powers. And the powers of the governors of the state. You've been using them, the political parties. I'm referring to, not to you, Albanese, because you have no such authority. Now, if you want us to take you serious, you think you're just going to demand this and you're going to bring in the United Nations troops and you're going to get locked up if you talk, well, it hasn't been proclaimed and gazetted yet, your law. I can't find it in anything. Otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you, because you've given you the right, you and your people, who don't exist in our Constitution, the right to arrest us and charge us if we say something that you don't agree with. All I'm saying, David Stewart says, a lie can also be called disinformation. David, stop saying this nonsense. I'm trying to get people to wake up. I'm not criticising you except for the fact of what you're saying. This isn't where you come on my platform and denigrate everything that's going on and say it's just, you can use these laws. I'm asking the political parties where they get the authority to exist. The Australian government, cabinets, and all of those little people that are doing this to explain where you come from. I don't want to know who was there doing that. What I'm asking for is an explanation from Anthony. I'm referring to comments, by the way. Anthony Albanese to explain if he wants his law to be, purported law, to be law, explain in here where it comes from, where your authority to create it comes from. I'm only doing what you people did in Canberra, and thanks for doing what you've done. I'm not taking anything from that. This platform at present is purely and simply to protect all of us, including our ability to just come on here and ask questions of our politicians, because you can't go to their office, they just say, oh, she's not here, she's away, or this person's not there. You cannot get a straight answer out of the office of our purported representatives. It doesn't exist. I'm sorry, but that's the situation we're in. And the big problem I have is I want to know. I've got the inquisitive mind. I'm entitled to have one. I'm one of the 27 million that are in this country. I was born here, so I'm native. I was born here, I'm indigenous. The dictionary says that. You can change the dictionary to say, I might have been born here, but I don't belong here. Someone else owns it, and you can make us pay rent. You know, that's all nonsense. Take the nonsense out. Just explain, Anthony Albanese, if you want your whatever it is to become a law, explain in here where the authority comes from. Because this requires you do it. And the framers in this red book requires that you do it. You can't put your green book up and say, oh, the annotations are different now because we had a constitutional convention. How can you have a constitutional convention in 1988 and then put it to the people that you want a republic and thinking that you're going to get it? The people said no, so that was the end of it. No matter how many, did he have the power to do it? No. No. The logo is on here. That's the only logo that's ever been authorised. We agreed to that. We put it on our constitution. Now, this is the other question. Who told you you could change that? Why was it necessary to do that? Because you wanted to change the status of our country to get more authority? Where in the Constitution does it say you have that right? It doesn't. It says the Governor-General in Council, which we don't have. Puts legislation together. They hold all the portfolios. He selects it, not you. The Governor-General does. See, the big problem is we've got females taking over as Governor-General, but there's nowhere in here that says the Governor-General. Why do we, Martin Taylor, again, why do we seek remedy from those that are abusing us, governments and judiciary? Why aren't you out trying to seek remedy from your purported representative? Why aren't you doing that? Because I can also, oh, here you go again. There's nothing I'm saying is an attack on Albanese. I'm just asking where the authority comes from that he's exercising. Not what he said in his legislation, because I haven't read it, it's not available. I am asking him to show us where his authority comes from to sit in our parliament, being that numerous times I've shown he has no authority to exist. He can't. If you look at this is the supreme law. Where is the authority for him to exist? It doesn't. This isn't any. There's no Prime Minister in here. There's none. All right? Now, I'm not going to sit here arguing with you or anybody else on here about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is myself and all the friends that I have that I can talk to want to know where the authority comes from that he's exercising at present, where the Australian government come from, where the cabinet come from. International law has no authority here. None of it. And nor can it ever be signed. If the High Court was ever lawful, according to our Constitution, they decided you can't sign outside agreements and then implement them here. If you're serving the people, you have to ask us, do we want to be signed up to the One World Government, the WEF, international law, United Nations, any of those things? We were never asked. Why? Because you knew we'd say, get lost. Get lost. That's what we would have said. A lot more than that if some Australians would put it in a more abusive thing. I'm not going to. All I'm going to say is, you want us to abide by this purported law, show us in there where all your authority comes from. Yeah, Shelley Allen, you're correct. It's the people, it's not the government. And I've just re-explained that. Thank you very much. Right, now, I've only got one more thing to say, Anthony Albanese. We, the people, can ignore everything you say with impunity. With impunity. You can't touch us. If you do, then we will want the United Nations to protect us from you. Because you are the offenders. We don't want anything to do with the United Nations, but that's the scenario that's coming out. We expect England to stand up and protect us from people who don't exist, who can't prove their existence. Why? Because we're entitled to as a colony of England. What it needs is everybody here to go after and tell England, do what you want, do what we want. Because we're a colony of them. They're bound by their law, the Privy Council. So, Anthony Albanese, you want us to abide by it? You think you're just going to push it in and we're going to do it? No. How are you going to ask the Governor-General, who doesn't exist, to prorogue the Parliament that doesn't exist? It doesn't exist because it doesn't comply with this, nor does the Governor-General. So how are you going to do that, to have a federal election? That can't happen because it doesn't comply with this. You've got to show us where the political parties get their authority. You can't. You can't create it. There's no authority to do it. There's no point getting a professor who professes your rhetoric to try and teach us your rhetoric. We're not interested. We have our law. Everything we got is ours. What you talk about is nonsense. So you have a very lovely day, and I'm waiting to hear from you, because if you can prove your authenticity under this, everybody's going to snap into gear and do everything you want. You see, I really, myself personally, because I've had so many kids, fully understand your idea of taking kids off the internet. That should never have been allowed on it. For educational purposes in school, fine. Be able to access those educational areas, fine. But to go on the general thing, looking at the bullying and that, which is what you're using as a reason, I believe, fine. Take it off for that. But you've got to, in this day and age, you set up electronic situation where you can teach people, so restrict it to that, not a problem. But until you receive from us permission to restrict us, our speech, you don't have it. Malcolm Roberts is pretty right in a lot of things, except he leaves the Constitution out. If it's not there, Wayne Glew, they don't have to prove anything. We are required to remove them with what mechanism that empowers us is the key. No, Martin, if you read the annotated Constitution, page 795, the fourth paragraph, it says they have to tell us where they get their authority from. That seems to lean to the idea they have to prove their authority. I'm not talking about the mechanism to remove them. You're trying to get me off the subject, and I'm not going to debate that. This is a mechanism to remove them. Read it and understand it. It's available in all the archives in all your libraries. You can get it. That's where I got it from originally. But I'm not attacking you. I'm saying stop trying to turn it to what you think. You have no power to go and attack the government or the parliament, except in the courts with this. We don't have courts. So where do you go? The Privy Council that Anne Toomey says has been removed. No, it's not been removed. It's been moved into the High Court of England to the Court of Chancery. Facts. I checked it out, and you did not. If you did, you would have come up with the same conclusion. In England, in the House of Commons, there is a committee that deals with constitutional issues that arise in this commonwealth. In our commonwealth, not the government's, ours. So I suggest that you go to that, you look at that, here's all your remedy. Everybody makes a formal complaint to them. They are duty bound by their office in the House of Representatives in England to deal with the constitutional issues. In other words, make the Parliament comply with this. If you go and pick on them, you're accepting they exist. You're going there to fight something and say it doesn't exist, and by doing so, you're saying, well, you were there. All you have to do is totally ignore them, like our Constitution says, and go to England, to the House of Representatives, or House of Commons it's called in England, and deal with it there. So all I'm asking you, I've read all your things. Yes, Ron Clark, you're correct. Unlawful laws deserve no obedience. That says that on page 791. Neither the federal nor the state parliaments are sovereign bodies. They're simply legislatures with limited authorities. If they attempt to pass a law in excess of that authority, it's a nullity, affords no obedience. So you're correct. I agree with you. All right. Martin Taylor, you come back again. You're not. You disappeared. Sorry, I'll read that later. I know what you're doing, but my whole outlook is to stay inside the bounds of the threats made by Albanese by simply asking, if you want us to believe your law, and I don't for 1 second intend to comply with it, I want you to show us where the authority comes from in here. That's what I'm asking. If you want to push the pin, you start your own platform and do exactly that. Ask him to explain it. You are fully entitled to ask him that. Why aren't you doing it? Why ask me what you can do? Completion is to be Holy Holistic Organ Church of England. And actually, that's correct. The holistic, I don't know. The Church of England is the Church of England. It is the church that's there lawfully. Again, our problem is that nobody is enforcing our Constitution. Yeah, Kim, possible, whoever you are, police are just doing the bidding of corrupt politicians. Yes, absolutely. That's why we need to put this to the House of Commons England and say, it's your duty to uphold this Constitution. When are you going to do it? You can't do it in this country. The people that are controlling it control the courts. 1979, they took control of the High Court with the High Court Act. They took control of everything in this country and people are sat back. Now you're asking and giving your opinions on how you think you can change it. Believe me, I've been through the courts. You run into a brick wall. And you're going to keep running into brick walls. What's this? A effing house... No, get out. Manager has cut contact with my children. Yeah. House manager employee making decision. Yes. Where did they get the authority? I'm currently working on the abduction of kids from a family. I'm working on it. But I'm not going on here because it is a good law that issues relating to kids and the children's court and all that remains anonymous and in-house with the parents of the kids for their safety and for yours, especially for their safety, which is paramount. Giving them to the government, it's not safe. I agree with that, and that's all I'm going to say in relation to that. I'm working in a case already. The word allegedly before disinformation in the first sentence, sorry. All right, David, you've had your say. Stop trying to change what I'm saying. My whole post this morning is to say, you want us to believe your law, abide by it, comply with this. Stop trying to put your ideals. This isn't a platform for you to put your ideals. This is for me to try to explain to you. Make every politician who sits in your town go to them and say, where in the Constitution do you get your authority? They can't answer it. They can't answer it. If you can't answer it, pack up and get out of our country or out of our parliament. We don't have to pay people who shouldn't be there. We can't attack a law if we can't prove it doesn't exist. That's what they're trying to say. We know our law, which is this, says the law doesn't exist. Coming on here and putting in your version doesn't help. All you're doing is you're cutting across what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say, which is the crux of everything, is if the Parliament wants us to believe they're a government and it belongs to Uncle Albanese and his people and they have the right to do what they're doing, just show us in here. Because we are the Commonwealth. They are not. They're trying to say, oh, we got this authority. You don't do what we say, we're going to lock you up. That's the mentality. So going into all these other things about what you should do, what you believe we should do, I believe if they comply with this, that's going to answer everything you need. How do they do it? You've got to go to the House of Commons England, which is granted and requires to deal with constitutional issues arise in this country, because you can't do it in the courts here. They're all bent and twisted. You see, we have a lot of intelligent people sitting in their courts called judges. We have intelligent people sitting in as politicians. But they've been taught nonsense. This is what they should be taught. It's a supreme, absolute and total control, because it's ours. We are in that position. Try to comprehend where I'm coming from. I've always pushed this has to be put before we can have a lawful parliament, and it is a fact. I'm not telling you something that isn't a fact. So any legislation that says it's disinformation is a lie. I'm asking them to show us where the authority comes from. They want to say everything I say, you say, everyone else says is disinformation. I'm saying, where does all your authority come from? Then they become, if they dump this and say they have any authority outside this, that's disinformation. Their own law catches them. Understand what I'm talking about now? Their own law catches them, and they have to be charged. Because if it doesn't, authority doesn't come from here, because this is authority granted by the people, and it is a parameter set. If it doesn't come from here, it doesn't exist. So Everything they do and say is disinformation already. They've put their law together from disinformation. They're trying to push it on us from disinformation. All I'm asking is to show us, so we can't comply with what we don't know. We can't comply. Stop and think about what I've said, and stop coming on here giving your opinion of where we should go or ask questions where we should go. The question is, you want to put this law in place, you show us where the authority comes from. Because if you can't, it doesn't exist. It's that clear cut. And if you're going to continue, we have the right to go to the House of Commons in England, to that council. Look it up on the internet, it's there. It was Andrew Rosendahl before the last election who was the head of it. We put it to him. We put it to him. But we're only one person. We need all of you to do it. So David Stewart, I suggest you go and do exactly that. Complain the Parliament is calling itself a government outside the authority granted by this. Complain they're passing laws which they have no right to pass, because it's not good governance and well-being if they take away our right to freedom of speech. The law could be put in place in the form of good governance, but not in its format. Not in its format. You can't be abusive to another person except to tell the truth. It is defamation if you tell a lie about somebody. But when you say what you're saying is a lie, where did you get that information? That's not defamation. If you sit in a public place and you talk about a subject, you have to know that subject's correct. I base everything I say on this, the interpretation by the framers and decisions of the High Court. It's not disinformation that way. They can interpret it that way, and so be it if they do. I'm asking them where their authority comes from this and the framers' interpretation to say what they say, or produce so-called laws. Look at it this way. Someone said it's not a law, it's a nullity. Yes, absolute 100% correct. Ask them to comply with this. If they don't, go to the House of Commons. That's your right. Don't worry about what they say. They can't control that bit, nor are they going to. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your comments. But please stick to what I'm asking you, because it's a very serious issue where they are just cutting across and doing what they like, and by saying you should do this, you should do that, where can we go with that? None of that is relevant. What's relevant, are they complying with this? If yes, where and here are they complying with it? Because if they're not, they don't exist. A very, very simple thing. And I know I'm hurting, getting under people's skin, because long-time friends not even talking to me. Because they're politicians. What makes them not want to talk to me? I've touched a nerve. Boo-hoo. If I only end up with my wife, which is the only friend I got, really, and my children, and a few others around me, if that's all I end up with, so be it.
We got Jesus with us.
Yeah, we got everything we need when we're together. I'm not interested in anything else except putting this country where it belongs. Thank you for your time. And if I don't appear back on here, they probably would want to wipe me off rather than answer the questions. But at the end of the day, everybody should be pushing, answer the question. Where in our Constitution do you get your authority from? Because that's the parameters set by us, how we want to be governed, for good governance. If they say it's anything else, they're wrong again. Explain where you got that from. You can't. The Whitlams, the Hawks, the Howards, all those people, they're just pushing their party lines. Where'd they get the authority to exist? If they answer that, and it doesn't come up in here, they didn't exist. So everything they said is nonsense. Realise it's a simple way. There's no other way. And I'm not going to tell you this, but you should look at whether you are willing to vote or not at the next election if they don't show in here where their authority comes from? Why would you? Turn up there and just say it's closed. Go and get some lawful representatives for us to vote for. That's all you have to do, and walk away. Oh, I know they cut contact with your children. That's not what this is about. Sorry, Danielle. Danielle, I sympathise with you because I know it's happening at present with the people I'm talking to, but we've taken measures and I can't talk about it. Okay? Thank you for your time. I hope you listen to what I say, because there is very little time to do what I'm saying, but demand them to show you where their authority comes from. Each individual politician, if they don't vote for them, tell them to get out, and then go around telling everybody they're not governing for us, they're governing for their political parties and not helping us one little bit. So thank you for your time. Have a nice day.